I've managed to snatch him out of the gym and or the range. He's there. He's on vacation. I'm ruining it. He's Scott Stallings. Welcome to the show, mate. How are you?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. First off, I got to ask you: a big year, tour championship, close in the BMW for a three-time PGA Tour winner. Your assessment of the recent season? Content, striving for more. If I know Scott Stallings, I guess.
Yeah, I would say all of those things.
Mm,
The the goal from the conversation on Tuesday morning of Napa was what do we have to do from here to get to Atlanta,
yeah.
and that's a conversation that basically from September to the basically the following almost September.
Mm,
So a year's worth of work and planning and just kind of a little bit of a different of a mind shift to prepare to kind of put yourself in a little bit different spot than you've been in before. And um, so, yeah, to answer that, probably a combination of everything. Very happy to achieve a major goal of my career to be able to do that. But like anyone, you don't know what you're missing until you have a chance to experience it. And then you experience, you're like, all
yeah,
right,
okay.
I needed, I need to do this some more.
Yeah, I got to ask then. I'm getting into the cart in front of the horses I normally do because I'm a golf fan. You must have been operating on fumes in Atlanta. I saw you during the preparation. You looked in good shape. After the big run the week before, how were the energy levels?
The energy levels were good. I mean, you were there for the week, and you kind of realized like that golf course is such like a fine line kind of place, and
Mhm.
like, I mean, my scores weren't great by any means, but like I didn't really play bad. I, I drove it like two steps in the rough, like every hole, and the ball sitting down, and then it's just like that perfect 2 inch Bermuda. Could sit up on top, sit down on the bottom, and but I guess if you're going to struggle, struggling there is better than struggling other places, just because the fact of like I did achieve and kind of get to that spot,
Mhm.
but maybe a little bit of a downer after the great weekend in Delaware and, put myself in contention and, really, playing well, kind of coming down the stretch at the last part of the event on Sunday. But I mean, golf's a fickle game and, just being a little bit off, can, pay the price for
Yeah.
sure. And I mean, East Lake was a perfect testament of that. And I need to drive it better in the fairway to have more opportunities. And I just didn't do that very well that week.
Well, a lot of good opportunities coming up now. Major championships, players, all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah, very much so.
yeah, okay. Let's dive into it, Scott. I've been a fan ever since I watched you back in my college coaching days. I saw you play for Tennessee Tech and Jacksonville State University's event at the Trent Jones place there. And I was struck because Yo was a guy from Worcester, Massachusetts, playing golf down in Tennessee. So I first off need to know how that happened. And let's sort of put you into context for our audience, please.
Yeah, I mean, I was born in New England,
Mm,
just outside of Boston. My mom's kind of from up in that area, but at an early age, we moved to Tennessee
all right.
and spent a little bit of time in West Tennessee, and then probably from like kindergarten on, basically, Oak Ridge, Knoxville area, East
Mm.
Tennessee, and that's kind of where I grew up. I mean, all my sports loyalties besides Tennessee football are New England based teams, and so I'm very confused redneck, I guess. Um, so I can speak both languages. I can understand Northern Yankee and the Deep South, and kind of be an intermediary between the two. So um,
And you're
my
doing
dad's
good.
fam, my dad's family is very Southern, and my mom's family is very Northern. So getting them
Melting
together,
pot, huh?
yeah, very much so.
Well, you're doing yeoman's work for golf and amateur golf and junior golf in Knoxville. We'll get to that. So you graduate college, successful there, turn pro, make it to the Corn Ferry Tour pretty fast. Back there in, you played the mini tour some, but in 2009, you earned your Corn Ferry Tour card. Um,
Hmm.
then lost the card, but went right back to tour school the following year when they still had that. Finished 11th and got to the PGA Tour. And then you were pretty well a quick study because that's in 2010, I think it is. 11, you
Hmm.
win in Greenbrier. So this to me almost seems meteoric in a way from college just quickly to the pros, where any aspirant young professional watching this, they know it's not that easy to go from mini tours to the big stage. little experiences, lessons you can share from that portion of your journey, please?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, obviously, I had a pretty good career at Tennessee Tech. I had an opportunity. I was an All American, so I had a chance to play in some events that, probably myself and maybe a couple others, Danny Willett played at Jacksonville State. A few other guys had a chance to kind of play in some, you know, quote unquote, like upper echelon college events
Yeah.
and kind of get a chance to see truly what the best look like. And that was kind of my first like entrance into, what like real high level golf looked like. And I remember playing the All American in El Paso, and I played the first round with Jonathan Moore. And I called my dad. I was like, I literally played with the best person I've ever seen in my life. I was like, how in the world am I going to try to beat this guy?
Mhm.
And that was the same like season where basically he just won everything.
Yeah.
Um, but just kind of let me know that then I played in NCAA's and different things like that, and kind of continued to, push up and kind of knew that, if I continue to improve and different things like that, I might have an opportunity. But like anything, until you actually get out there, you don't know.
Yeah.
And so it was sort of not necessarily wait and see, but just be very patient and kind of understand that when the opportunity arose to try to be ready to take advantage of it. In 2009, I made it to finals and missed my card by a shot at Berry
Stroke, I
Lakes,
know,
and
yeah. Uh-huh.
it was like, oh man, I'm never gonna go on tour, and ended up being a huge blessing in disguise. And at that time, if you finish high enough in the money list on the Corn or Nationwide Tour, it's Corn Ferry now, but
Yeah.
you basically got a free run at finals, which is pretty great, man. Like if you're ever gonna have to go, that's a pretty. So I had like full status on the Nationwide Tour, and then I had a chance to be able to go and you know take a free run at it.
So I'm keen to know, you talk about, playing at that high level and then taking the next step. Looking back, Scott, was there a separator? Was there something that was just different? Was it just all parts of your game that improved? Or did you really identify? Because I'm asking for the young aspirant professional watching this, because I feel like the leap from college to mini tours to the big leagues is pretty big.
Yeah, very much so. And I think the gap as far as where guys have just been, I mean, the age of the tour player is getting younger and younger. I mean,
Mhm.
being
Yeah.
interviewed at the tour championship at 37 and finding out I was the second oldest player in the field was just a little bit mind blowing.
Yeah.
I played with Adam, I played with Adam
He's the
Scott
old
the
man.
second round. I said, boy, I'm glad you're here. He said, me too, but why do you say that? I was like, well, you're older than me. So, um, but I think just like I think in anything in life or whatever, whether it's golf, if you cannot continue to put yourself in spots or opportunities to learn and get better, the
Yeah.
moment that you feel like you've got it all figured out is the moment you don't have anything figured out.
Mm,
And
gospel.
trying to put yourself in uncomfortable situations, whether it's playing, practicing, training, and that matters for life as well. But golf's a perfect example of that. As soon as you get comfortable and everything is as soon as you get run over,
Yeah.
and people continue to press and try to improve and get better and better, and that was kind of more or less what I did.
Is there ever
Just
is there ever
try.
a time sorry to interrupt, I gotta ask this because I'm forgetful at 51. I'm the old guy, I'm making you feel good about it. Is there ever a time that you kind of feel, because I love the way you say when you feel like you've got it figured out, you really don't. But is there ever a time where you feel like I'm good enough? Because otherwise you get to working so hard that sometimes I feel like people start chasing their tails and then the next thing they're all over the place and they've essentially lost their identity. And you get where I'm going here?
Yeah, very much so. And I think you got to surround yourself with a little bit of guardrails because, I mean, any person that plays anything at the highest level has somewhat of a neurotic tendency, whether they want to admit it or not.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
You cannot continue to do what we do day in day out and not have some part of your personality that's just a little bit like super. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I think that like I got a pretty good team around me to kind of help out as far as like, man, let's like keep the train on the tracks here and keep
Mhm.
pushing the ball down the field instead of, hey, that worked really good last week. Let's try something completely different this week, and kind of going on from there. And I've learned a lot along the ways. Um, Tried to make my game fit the course instead of the course fit my game, if that makes sense.
Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Um, and kind of play more that is more comfortable for the way that I see the shots go in instead of actually how the the and a little bit of that's being more aggressive in certain situations and less aggressive in others, and
Mhm.
also being honest with myself and my caddy and the people around me. Be like, man, like I don't have this shot right now.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like I like let's figure out a way to kind of, because I mean we've all, as a player, we've all stood on that one tee box for whatever reason. It's like, man, this looks horrible to me. And then the very next guy's like, well, this is my favorite hole. I think this hole looks terrible. And then it's like, well, that's my favorite hole. And
Exactly. Yeah.
it's all personal preference. And I think that as I gotten older and hopefully wiser, I think that I've just become way more honest with myself and understanding of the spots of, when, everything's clicking and, turning over in the right direction, really try to take advantage of it, but also understanding of just using a little bit more discipline and putting myself in some spots where, I can kind of just, more or less tread water for a little bit. And then, when it does start getting working around in the right direction again, really try to take advantage and, move myself up the leaderboard when that happens.
Yeah. Hey, I want to say this as a former golf instructor who's been on the PGA Tour carousel where you hired and then you fired like just a few weeks later because everyone's looking around for the next secret kind of thing. Um,
Hmm.
but as I remember Scott Stallings college coming up, Scott Stallings winning at Torrey Pines to now the version of you now. Surely there's been modifications, but your golf swing really they've been fine tunes, but it's never been like some major overhaul. And I think there's a lot to be learned for anyone listening to this or watching this that is like trying to improve because you didn't really ever retool yourself in the biggest way with your golf swing
Yeah, I don't think I necessarily changed my swing very much. Obviously, I changed my body a
physically.
lot,
Yeah. Hmm.
and that kind of allowed me to be able to do the things I probably should have been able to do to be a little bit more consistent in my game. But I think the biggest misconception is when I made those changes, just like within my health, like I didn't do a single one of those things for golf. There was not one thing I was like, oh, if I do this, I'll play better golf.
Yeah.
It was like, if I don't do this, like my life is like a totally different scenario and a completely different conversation. And if I continue to get to play on tour and play for a long time or play a couple more years or whatever, like that's a bonus. But I'm doing this for me and my family.
Hmm.
And if golf is an opportunity, then it was a bonus. And that's why I think that perspective is a little bit different. And I mean, it was definitely a couple years there where golf is what I did and loved, and the opportunity to play and be a tour player. But I mean, I had a lot to figure out in a very short amount of time while trying to play against the best players in the world. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there was definitely, excuse me, there was definitely a couple years there where it's like, I don't really know what's happening here, but I'm gonna try to do my best and figure it out and try to find the best version of myself. And then hopefully I'll start to, figure out what my baseline was. And then, golf can come a little bit more in the focus here and, you continue to move forward from there.
Okay, that's the perfect segue. 2015. I remember you went away. You had won in Torrey Pines in 14. You went away. Next thing I see you, I don't know, year and a half, couple of years later, maybe even less. I don't know. Time sort of spins, and I looked at you, and I'm like, dude, really? You had dropped, I think, like 50 pounds. I want you to brag for a minute and share this because our audience, I'm always professing holism and the overall you when it comes to getting better golf, which you are emblematic of, which I'm glad you join us. But you changed stuff. Body mass was down, or body fat was down, muscle was up. You look like a different guy. And I'm sure that
Uh,
had a
I,
bunch to
I,
do with you mentally. Speak to you've spoken some to the transition, how you were doing it for self, but I'm interested to for you just to share with folks how much you actually lost and what you gained in muscle mass, etc.
I went from 256 and 37%
Yeah.
to the lowest I got was just below 180 and 11. but that's not like a good 180 and 11. That's like a I was gonna get blown away
Right,
by
yeah.
the wind.
Mhm.
And when you go from like that big, and the same thing like anything, like you always try to tell someone like you get a guy that's coming over the top, and then all of a sudden they start coming underneath, and the next thing you know, they're like hitting themselves in the right leg.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you told me to come a little bit more from the inside. It's like, well, I didn't tell you from just like,
Yeah, I see where you're
and
going. Yeah, uh-huh.
it was kind of the same thing. Like I was so far up here, and then I had to come here, and then I had to kind of find the middle.
Mhm,
Um, and then that was kind of in the baseline of the beginnings parts of like toward the end of 18, early 19, and then I was like starting to kind of I was starting to feel pretty good.
mhm.
Starting to weight train a little bit. I mean, I was using weights throughout my training, but it was more just burn, man.
Yeah.
Like diet, like high cardio,
Mhm.
and literally tried to shed as much as I possibly could, and hopefully my swing would adapt. And it was different. I mean, if you ask Scott Hamilton a lot, we'd show up in Cartersville or show up at a tournament, and be like, "Man, what version of you do we have today?" And I'm like, "I don't know, I don't know. Let's see what happens."
Okay, I gotta ask
Um,
this, was this just personal, or was this doctor's recommendations? Where was that fork in the road where you just suddenly said, "Nah, we're not going down there, I'm changing course."
A little bit of it. I mean, there was some medical stuff in there, and I
Alright.
mean, I've shared plenty of that through the last few years. But ultimately, until you kind of face with those kind of decisions, I mean, no one wants to admit it, but you don't get there to the place where I was in. I mean, it was no one's fault other than myself,
Yeah, true.
and everyone's like, "Oh, well, I had this bad thing and this," and I mean, I didn't have any of that. I was just undisciplined. I had no structure. I was just like, man, make birdies and play good tour golf and sort of do whatever you want. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, there's not a lot of aspects of life to where that is applicable, especially playing and being or
Exactly.
aspiring to be one of the best players in the world.
Mhm. Hey,
And
okay,
it's
I
time to
want you
tighten up.
yeah, I want you to fire a hole, talking to me, talking to everyone who travels, businessmen, businesswomen listening to this, want to improve their game, know they're a little out of shape, posture's bad, they're struggling with pain and that sort of stuff. Fire a hole in the thing, well, when I'm on the road, it's just hard to eat right. Because the guy I'm talking to is not emblematic of that statement.
Well, I mean, that was the perfect example. It's like, well, I'll eat pretty good when I'm at home, but on the road, I just want to like, be ready to play golf and enjoy the places we go on the road. And I did a podcast a couple days ago, and the guy's like, if you could tell yourself something when you first got on tour that you did now, and I tell my kids this, I tell very much everybody, just because you can doesn't mean you should,
Mhm.
and try to understand some type of baseline of moderation. Never have two bad meals in a row, and try to build a baseline of understanding of where you just have you know eating and understanding of any type of like macronutrient, where you try to have lean protein, some grains, a little bit of carb, and kind of build it from there. Like it's not the hardest thing in the world, but it does involve a little bit of discipline.
Yeah.
Try to understanding of that. you know I traveled 30 plus weeks a year on tour, and was able to kind of manage through the whole thing. And but I do understand that if you don't have a plan or understanding of how to do it, how people get themselves in really bad spots. And man, I was the perfect example of that.
Mhm.
So opportunity to speak to people like yourself and sort of be that go between. The Man, don't put yourself in the same place that I did. Like this is it. Like you can't exhaust in my head, but this is all we have. Like that body that you have, that's all you get. Like you don't get any more. And so trying to be a good steward of it and understanding of that is, sort of something that I had to learn the hard way. And hopefully I can help people, not go down the same road that I did.
Well, you and I share similar outlooks on faith, and our body's our
Mhm.
temple and stuff. And look, I've done the wrong things throughout. And I had a young golfer. I remember the lesson back in the day, and he was talented, thought he could do whatever. And I said to him, I'm like, I want to paint a picture for you. I want you to imagine that I gave you a machine that could print $100 bills, legal tender. He goes, sure. I'm like, would you look after that thing? And he goes, heck yes, I would. I'm like, would you polish that every day? Would you oil it? Would you? He's like, sure, of course I would. Then I was like, you might be living in that machine. And all of a sudden, the outlook sort of changed. And I want you to embellish on that further because I'm essentially got an expert here, highest level of the game, who's changed things for the betterment of yourself holistically, and of course, results on the golf course.
Yeah, very much so. And I, I think, everyone's like, well, why are you training like this? And why are you doing this? And I think the misconception is, as much as people want to think that every aspect of our lives is based around being the best player or the best, golfer in the world. I mean, there are some parts of our lives that, man, we're humans, we're husbands,
Mhm.
fathers, whatever. And, that plays into being, that high level pro. And kind of, things get out of order and different things like that. And I mean, can definitely uh be a positive or
Yeah.
a huge detriment. And those things kind of have to have the ebb and flow of understanding what that looks like. And I've made a million mistakes and will continue to, but I also am understanding that I will continue to learn from them and continue to try to put the best foot forward. But yeah, man, I was the guy that's like, I feel good. Like I'm gonna, continue to play well. And the next thing you know, you wake up and you're like, man, this is not working like it used to. What's happening here? And
Yeah,
then you start
exactly.
looking at like just everything I did on a day to day basis. There was not a single thought of what do I need to do to prepare myself or prepare my body or my mind or anything to go and play against the best players in the world. It's like I'm gonna wake up, I'm gonna eat terrible, I'm not gonna train, I'm not even remotely think about how I sleep, and then wake up and it's like, here I go.
You've said something there I've got to touch, and then I want to pivot to a statement of yours that I love. I use it. I'll be honest. You talk about the recovery, the repair. Um,
Mhm.
that's a big deal. Rest, recovery, that sort of thing. Because everyone, if they get online, they look at your workouts, they're like, "Holy smoke!" They'll paralyze themselves doing it. But I don't think people pay enough attention to not just eating right, but then resting right. So I want to ask you this: you jacked up, everyone does. You get the adrenaline going on, and you come off a big round. You're in contention. We're heading into Sunday of a major championship, or I've got a chance to win. The rest sometimes is hard. So advise
Mhm.
folks who are in this place, businessmen or women or whatever, where they come off the big meeting and they've got to now downshift to be able to be operational and in their best shape for the next day.
I think the biggest thing is building a routine and understanding of like, hey, when this process starts, your body kind of becomes acclimated to what that looks like, and build something to where, all right, I know that I'm somewhat preparing to rest or whatever that looks like, and you know, caffeine's a huge part of it. It can be utilized, can be a great asset, but can also be a huge detriment because people rely upon it so
Mhm.
much.
Yeah.
And at some point, you want your adrenal system to be able to fluctuate and adapt appropriately. And I mean, I drank a million Dr. Peppers a day, and I mean, would go to bed, wake up with it, and everything, and just sugar and caffeine, and trying to understand like how that can play a role, but can also definitely have a huge detriment on your sleep and recovery aspect. And I think just understanding those kind of things and how to kind of adapt. Um, and kind of using simple rules, as cold and dark as you can get,
Golden
no
dark.
caffeine,
Mhm.
and just trying to build something into where as soon as this starts to happen, your body just starts to kind of like kind of melt down. And a big thing too, especially if I know like I have something big coming up or I'm waking up early, I try to plan out what I know I'm going to do when I wake up, so I'm not laying there sitting in bed and
Oh,
like
worrying about it.
trying to like micromanage it. Well, if this happens, this happens. Like, no, man, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk through it just like I'm going to go on that first tee shot. Here's my target. This is the whatever wind. This is what shot we're going to hit and go. I'm going to wake
Okay.
up and this is the first thing I'm going to do. And then it's kind of like, all right, my mind's shutting off and be able to build from there.
And I just have to ask this. We live in an era where we can find out quickly how bad we are by just switching on social media. That's bad for sleep too, huh?
Yeah, sometimes it's comedy relief, especially if you've hit some god awful shot that's made its way on TV or something like that. At some point, man, like the misconstrued view of that we're perfect. And I mean, you've spent as much time on the grass as anybody,
Mhm.
and how many bad shots have you seen the best players in the world hit? It's just we don't do it as often as someone else.
Okay. The rent is due. You gotta pay the man.
Mhm,
I started broadcasting radio in 12, and then I progressed up through PGA Tour Live and now CBS and still some live. I watched something that PGA Tour Entertainment put together of in your house, I think it was, your gym, and
mhm,
there's a big Tennessee flag over there, and it says there, "The rent is due, you gotta pay the man," or something to that effect.
mhm,
Uh,
mhm.
I mean, that was so poignant. I've used it in calls. I think it's such a nice mantra and a call to action for people wanting to really make change, whether it's to their game, to themselves, preferably, or whatever the case might be. Talk about that, please, and let's highlight this because I feel like it can be like marching orders for everyone listening.
Yeah, very much so. Well, like it's by no means my quote by any means, but a good buddy of mine, Josh Bridges, it's a huge successful career in CrossFit,
Hmm.
and former Navy SEAL.
Okay.
And I met him through a friend of a friend, and we were playing the Torrey Pines event. He lives out in San Diego, and we go to his house. And I knew him, but I'd never really like trained with him, and it was kind of like the first time we were ever going to spend some time together.
So
And
wait a second. Wait. So you're playing a PGA Tour event, the Farmers Insurance Open, and you going to go and work out with a SEAL? You're not getting
correct,
really?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, obviously I can't do what he can do, but I mean, I'm trying to learn, like try to figure it out.
Mhm.
And I mean, he was very kind to spend some time with me, and had a good group of dudes in there, trying to figure it all out. And
Yeah.
the first thing he says, like, you gonna pay the man today? And I'm like, there's no way this guy thinks I'm gonna pay him to work out. Like I knew nothing about this. And he kept saying it over and over and over again. And I'm like, he's like, the rent's due, man. Like, we got to get in there. And I'm like, man, like Googling, like, what do you pay a guy? Like, all these things and trying to
Uh,
figure out. And I said, all right, man, like, if you just need me to pay you, like, what do I need to, like, what do you want me to pay you? Like,
uh-huh.
you're taking time out of your day. He's like, no, I don't want you to pay me anything. I want you to pay. I want you to pay. And I'm like, what am I paying? He's like, you're paying the rent. And he started explaining like successes ever own, rich
Yeah.
do every day, and just kind of the idea of like, the things you did before are great, but you got to wake up and continue to build on it the day before the following day. And, a little bit of more like not rest on your laurels, continue to push forward. And I'm like,
Mhm.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I love this. And, so Josh has become a good friend. Learned a lot, especially just from a mentality standpoint of just like embracing adversity, finding discomfort, and like just dealing with things and putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, and trying to be better for it on the back end. And so that was kind of how that all got going. And when I was building and kind of designing my gym out, I had a couple spaces to be able to put it, and I wanted to be able to see in a spot as soon as people came in. So I've got that. I've got a couple like stoic quotes kind of on the wall throughout, and people kind of see it. And no matter what part of the gym you're working out, you're going to find something that, if you're in a moment of discomfort. We just got done training. I had a couple new guys come in today that worked out, and man, towards the end, man, it just kind of got like, man, this is just not great. Like we
Yeah.
need to get finished with this workout. And I looked over, and I just said, man, you see what that wall says? And the guy just like clicked into another gear, and it was a big team workout. Like we were all in it together. And I just tried to build in where a community, and when we walk into that room, there's going to be something that leaves you nothing more than encouraged and motivated to try to leave better than you came in.
What was the quote?
It was the the rent is due, and I
Really?
was
Okay.
because we just had one of the spots, just kind of where one of the stations of the workout was right in front of it. And I said, man, just keep staring at that the whole time,
Uh-huh.
the whole time, and kind of drove his way through it and was able to finish the workout and walked out. He's like, I'll see that wall in my dreams.
Well, along those lines, I've talked with Rory about this, and Rory, you mentioned the Stoics. He reads a lot of that stuff, and the
Mhm.
obstacle is the way is a big thing too. Um,
Yeah, very much so.
I wanna ask you this, because look, There are going to be days when you wake up and your motivation isn't 100%, but you've still got to find that something to get me moving.
Mhm.
Initially, this is a mindset, right? I think eventually it might become, for everyone listening, it might become habits, but you got to force your way through those first few go arounds to get to the
Mhm.
place where it's kind of part of your identity. Am I correct?
Yes, and I mean, the number of people that come on the road is like, "You train today?" I'm like, I mean,
Really? Yeah.
is that a thing? Like people like, and before, if you'd asked, like, "Man, I'm playing golf today," no way. And it's just a matter of like, it's not a matter of if and when, just a matter of what time of day I build it
Hmm.
in. And off weeks are different, tournament rounds are different. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are different. Everything, is sort of, has its ebbs and flows. But at some point in the day, I'm going to, is that just all mobility? Is that cardio? Is it full training? Is it whatever?
Hmm.
Just continually trying to put yourself in that habit where something is for the betterment of, whether it's recovery based, whether it's, power strength, whether it's just pure aerobic, and there's all different variations of it. But just like you said, that was not the case when I first got going. It was kind of like, let's be in there,
Hmm.
let's physically get to the gym and, try to figure that out. But also, like anything, I think the beauty of it for myself was finding different ways to program and write workouts that basically took the same movement pattern in it and then build it to where it had it was apply able to be applied to all those days, to off weeks, to you
Yeah.
know early tournament weeks, to tournament days, travel days, all the different things. And that's when it sort of became a passion
Gotcha.
and something that I became super interested in. And because golf, it's like, for us, in order to get better, is finding like small little areas to improve and spend a little bit more time, a little bit more attention, and just slight refining. Where
Mm.
like training is like, I could give you a push up, sit up, squat, and run workout and write it 10 different ways, and you'd be like, man, those all sucked. Like,
Exactly right.
and
Yeah.
they were all different. And so it just kind of got me out of my own way a little bit when it came to practice. So I could kind of get that part of my mind out and be able to kind of put my head down, do the things I needed to do when I showed up at the course.
Awesome. You've been quoted in saying that there are only two things that you can control:
Correct.
attitude and effort.
That's it.
Now, okay, now this sounds like one of those things that I'd stick on the wall behind me, right? Or in your gym or whatever. And everyone's like,
Yeah.
oh, yes. And then we look at this thing and that is so right. And then just no one really ever turns around and makes it happen. I want you to help folks make the attitude and effort happen because that's, to me, the genesis of where all great endeavors lie.
Yeah. So there are two walls in the gym. One's an American flag and one's a Tennessee flag, and they have their rents do pay the man.
Hmm.
And the other one, it just says attitude and effort, kind of right through. And
All right.
they're like the same parts of the wall just across the gym, and they kind of face each other. And so no, you kind of can't escape it.
Hmm.
Um, and one of the walls is cement filled, so we do like a bunch of wall slams. And so, and I'm just making a point, like, you actually, if you're going to do any type of thing against the wall, you're going to stare at that the whole time. So I mean, essentially, throughout life, if you go through any kind of situation, the attitude and the effort put forward can determine the outcome of everything.
Hmm.
And even when bad things happen, because a lot of times when adversity comes, more often than not, in some ways, in shape or form, it is that person's fault that maybe caused it. Maybe it's a bad decision, whatever. But at other times, when life happens, I mean, man, sometimes you got to pick yourself up by the bootstraps and like, man, this sucks, but I'm going to deal with it. I'm
Yeah.
going to deal with it better than the next person, and I'm going to, the effort going forward to make myself. And I mean, sometimes it's easier said than done, but I think when that just overall mentality comes in, as far as just embracing adversity and understanding that the sky's not always going to be blue, the sun's not always going to be out, and the wind's not always going to be at your back. And that's not like a walk in with like, oh, the world's against me mentality. It's a little bit of understanding of, man, there's a lot of things in life that we want to control, and there's just a bunch that we can't. And the faster we realize that and just embrace that, whatever comes our way, man, the better off we're going to be. And just whatever comes our way, we're going to deal with it. And For me, that kind of starts in the gym. That kind of starts as I practice, as I play, and starting to understand that, you know, whatever kind of steps in there, I'm going to take it head on and I'm going to deal with it. And
Are you kind of saying, because what you were saying there is so poignant and it got me to thinking, and this sort of occurred to me. Maybe it's something I knew, but you know the statement, when the student is ready, the teacher will show up, kind of thing. And
mhm,
we have all of this in front of us and it's there, and all of a sudden we have the eyes to see it and the mind to comprehend it. Um, Look, you play against a collection of the best golfers in the world week in and week out. So it's all about competition, and everything about you, your contracts, your success, all that is defined by how you beat them, beat the
mhm.
competition, right? Are you basically saying, Scott, that for you, the competition, and you recommending to folks, the competition is this dude and not necessarily everyone else? And if you beat yourself, and if you keep the right attitude and stuff, you're going to naturally begin to find success that way?
Yeah, like the moment that we're out there playing, and you and I are out there playing, and I'm worried about what you're doing, it's over.
Yeah. Huh?
like like it's over. Like the best players in the world could completely care less what the other guy's doing. They're focused on what they're doing and trying to be the one that's applying the pressure for whatever that looks like.
Hmm.
And there's been a bunch of my time in my career where I got caught up in what other people were doing. I remember my first time I watched Tiger at Torrey, my rookie year. I almost missed my tee time because I was watching him hit balls. I was like, "This is sweet." I mean, Tiger's over there just flushing these 7 irons, and I'm just over there like, "Oh man."
Fan zone.
Yeah, for sure. And I think everyone that has that first Tiger experience, their first time on tour, kind of can get themselves into that. But anyway, like the fact of the matter is, like everyone was asking in Delaware is like, oh man, you play with Rory on Saturday, you play with Adam on Sunday, two awesome dudes, but huge competitors. Like they could have cared less what I was doing because I could care less what they were doing. I'll shake hands, talk to them, walking down the fairway. But comes time to me to hit my ball and them to hit theirs. Like that's up to them and that's up to me.
Hmm.
And um, so I've done a lot better as my career's progressed to compartmentalize those kind of things and understand that my focus should be on me and the effort that I put forward and the decision making and the ownership that kind of comes with that. And understanding that, you know, within certain risk and this and that, because I think the biggest thing, especially when you see when that kid or a college kid or high school kid, they take that step from being like pretty good to like really good.
Yeah.
It's the maturity level to when it's like, all right, back right pin, par five, good drive, kind of cover around the water, and they're like, all right, this is the perfect club, I'm taking it on. And they the idea of assume risk kind of goes away. It's like, and then they go and hit it in the water, and they're just furious instead of, man, I knew that that was an opportunity, like that could happen.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
the best players in the world is like, man, I didn't hit the shot that I wanted to hit. I'm gonna go up there and get it up down, make my par, and go on the next hole, and like no harm, no foul, and do better next time instead of like that kid that just blows up and it's like, I cannot believe the water was there. I should have never done that. And then you start to go this like second guess mentality, which whether it's golf or life, you know the the second guessing on the back end does no one any good at any part.
Yeah.
And so I've struggled with that in my own life, and so I've tried to, on the backside of it, try to go into it with a little bit better mentality, and try to hopefully be better for it in the long run.
All right. Well, here's one of those things, like, because I love the way you turned that into a course management lesson, because there's so many folks, even at the highest level, who haven't learned that skill and been okay with themselves in situation. For me, I've always tried to maintain that it's okay not to be okay, and to recognize that, and then to make the appropriate decision. And I joked with you in the practice round at the Tour Championship where you walked on the tee and I'm like, hey, how are you? And you joked with me about my announcing. And then I said to you, I'm like, hey, I appreciate you because you've helped me in my one and done league. And you're like, how? And so, story goes, folks, I covered Scott and Patrick Cantlay in the final round of the 22 Rocket Mortgage event in Detroit. And, you know, I tell you as a friend and a golfer I highly admire, my assignment was Patrick Cantlay in that group,
Mhm.
because he was cruising along. But you were hitting beautiful shots the whole day, and you never looked like you tried to force the issue. And you stayed in there and stayed in there, and you're making smart decisions. And there was an event there on, it was 10, 11, 12, that long par four, right? Where
Mhm.
Cantlay's hit the thing all over the joint, and you down the fairway in the green there, 15 feet right. But the whole location, I looked at this when I walked past there, and I'm like, holy cow, there's only disaster that's going to happen around this crusty, crispy looking thing. And you had this
Mhm.
downhill putt, and all of a sudden you've got this birdie attempt, and you're on our screen now. And
Mhm.
and I remember saying, it's a birdie look, but you better approach this thing with caution. That was kind of my
Mhm.
call. The next hole, 13, you drive it right down there short of the green. And I walk past there because now you're in our show. And you got this burnt out bent grass, not much lie, back flag, ledge in front of it. And I was like, holy cow, stuff can go wrong here too off that tight lie. You had a very smart shot just behind the flag. I think you might have made it. I can't recall. And all of a
Mhm.
sudden you're in the show. So you were very patient, but you never try to force the issue. And then you joked with me on the course. You walked off after the chip shot on 13, and you came stood next to me, and I'm like, man, there's some tight lies down there. And then you commented on the green on 12. You're like, yeah, did you see that thing? I was scared I was going to lip it off. If I lipped it out, it was rolling off the green. And that's when I was like, this guy is there mentally. Not only were you playing great, but you were making the best decisions. And so I was like, well, guys, you better pay attention. And a couple of weeks later, you nearly win at the BMW event.
Yeah, I think just situational awareness as far as, Patrick had got off to a great start that day, and man, I was flushing it. I just like
Mm-hmm.
I was on the wrong side of the hole, and like I never really had that like 10 foot like right edge firm.
Yeah.
Like I had like 7 feet 3% left to right,
Very
you
good.
know,
Uh-huh.
or like, and I think that's the difference of understanding of, man, I can go in there and force it in there, but I'm gonna try to pick my spots and kind of go in there when the shots and everything match up. But you know, to be honest, that day I didn't drive it well enough to probably uh play and contend for the lead. I probably played about where I should, but I was happy in the spot to where even when I was sort of out of position, I played into the spots where I was supposed to be instead of
Mhm.
trying to force it into an area where just I could have literally made anything.
But but then I think you birdied 13, you birdied the par 5, right, after 2
Hmm.
tremendous shots in there. Then you birdied 16 after the sautéed 7-iron that went viral, you told me on, social media. I can't believe I don't think you birdied 17, you had an iron in there. But on 18, you
Yeah.
still had a shot. If you make the birdie on 18, I think you still had a shot of getting in the playoff, if memory serves me. And
No,
that's
no, Patrick. I finished like, I think I finished like eighth or something like
okay.
that. I was pretty far back, and then but Tony was a few groups, and then Tony started making birdies, and it
Yeah.
was over. But
But again,
at
it
that
was
point,
this case study in just smarts coupled with some really sound iron striking and stuff.
mhm. Yeah, it was. I mean, to I wish I could say I've done that for a long time, but I mean, John, my caddy, and I've been together for 7 years now, and I mean, it's been pretty well documented. We started working full time this year with Hunter Stewart
Mhm.
from a stats and analytics perspective, and he does a really good job as far as staying with us and understanding when the opportunities are going to be there, and so kind of go from there. And we started the start of this conversation, with when we got to Napa. The Tuesday conversation was, I'm going to build a plan for you for the year that will get you to Atlanta if you execute properly. So that all those,
Uh-huh.
because I mean, there's a bunch of tee shots. I'm like, why are we doing this? I don't understand. And then you go and then you actually like watch over the course of 4 days and you're like, oh, I get that.
Yeah.
And then you start to kind of like I bought in, and I'd never played good in Napa in my career. And he said, this is what I want you to do every day. And this is where I feel like you can, this is the area of your bag that is literally one of the best on tour. Let's try to be there as much as we possibly can, and beat them with where you're best. Don't play them from where they play from. Play them from where you play from.
Yeah.
And I did that, and I shot one under on Sunday, and I finished sixth. And I walked away as like I didn't really do anything special, and I, am a couple birdies away from having a chance to win coming down the stretch. And it's like Okay, I can understand just how to manage my expectations, manage myself over the course of 4 days, and just try to look for opportunities to have that hot 9 holes or have that, you know little stretch there where, you get going and kinda understand of, all those, like we're saying, all those things where it kinda comes together and matches up, and you look up, it's like, "Oh, man, that was a great week, and I really didn't do anything that, you
Yeah,
know,
special.
special."
Mhm. Well, I guess 2 more questions, I'll let you go. The along those lines, you talk about playing alongside Rory or Adam. Adam Scott, to me, ruined so many very good young professional golfers because of the way he hit long irons. I can't tell you, when I was teaching full time, guys would be like, "Have you seen that guy with a 4-iron? He barely leaves a divot, and the things are, like, flying like homesick angels." And so, all of a sudden, there was this genre of player then who wanted to swing like Adam instead of just kinda doing who they are like you do. I'd love your take there.
Yeah, I mean, Adam is very nice to play with. Like, it is, man, it is nice.
Rory's the
I'm
same way.
not
When
yeah,
Rory hits
I
balls,
mean,
I'm like, "Ah," you know?
yeah. Yeah, I played with Rory on, Saturday at BMW, and he hit a shot. I play with 7 guys in there, 7 number 1 players, in the world when they were number 1, and he was the only person that I walked off the course, and I was like, "I cannot physically do what he can." They were all great for their own reasons.
Mhm.
Tiger, all these guys were great in for different ways, but from a pure physicality standpoint, when we walked off the course, I was like, "I cannot do this." What I watched him do today, like, I'm not capable. And he hit a shot on 15. Pin was in the middle back right on Saturday. It's like 192,
A
little
par 3.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he hit an 8-iron, and I went back on shot length because my neck hurt when this ball went up in the air,
No
and and went 140 feet in the air, and he stopped it short of the pin. And I looked at
And there was
John. I was
water
like,
there too,
"There,
by the
there."
way.
I said, "There is not a person on the planet that can do that." And I said, "And if they say they can, they're lying." And so, but just, all those things of, trying not to get caught up in understanding that, people are great for a lot of different reasons, and understand that when I'm, playing my best, I'm pretty good too.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so having a little bit more self-awareness to, to be able to understand in the situation I put myself in. And man, I cannot say enough about how good those 2 guys were to play with in those situations. I hit my I hit my tee shot on 15 on Sunday with Adam, and I hit my tee shot on 18. And man, he was getting me fired up. As
Yeah.
I was not, I mean, just, keeping me going and everything. And I missed the putt on 18, to tie. And we get done, and we're walking through that little
You
tunnel up
hit a
there. And
good
he's
putt
like,
there,
"No,
by the way.
hey,
I
yeah."
thought that
Ended
pin
up
was
right,
in.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, 17 and 18, man. I thought I made both of them. Uh, and but to go and kind of walk that long walk up to go to the scoring, and he said, "Don't let your mind quit. Don't turn off." He said, "You got to be ready to go." He said, "Anything can happen." And we didn't know about Patrick's drive on 17. We didn't know about any of that stuff. He's like, "You got to be prepared that you're going to go right back out there," which
Wow.
was pretty awesome, man. I mean, he didn't have to take the time to do that, and just kind of says a lot to his character and, who he is as a pro, and, just also just awesome dude. So it was a really cool experience to, be in that kind of environment and to play as well as I did, but also to have, 2 of the game's greatest, kind of be able to pump you up and do those kind of things, which is pretty great.
Well, I'm gonna turn that coin around on you. First off, you talk about Rory's 8-iron, which I remember. We were covering you guys on feature groups, I think it was. And you ended up lower than him on the or higher than him on the scoreboard, lower than him on the scores. So, the way you play the game is great too. And then in terms of just being a quality human being, I wanna end with this, and I want your commentary because for me, it's kinda like a call to arms. And part of it, our beliefs, again, you and me both, being Christian, you've been quoted as to say, "My score doesn't define who I am." Um, please put a bow on the entire conversation with that.
I think, unfortunately, that when you play a results oriented sport or whatever it is, whether it's your business or whatever, it's hard not to have your identity tied into, that score you put in the box, or,
Mhm.
the deal that you did in business, or, whatever it is, for whatever reason. People want to quantify their worth by, something they work hard to achieve. And all that's great. But in terms of, you know, understanding that especially golf is the perfect lesson in humility because it's one of the only things in life where you can do everything right and get a bad result.
Yeah.
I can flush the shot, perfect yardage, perfect wind, and I can hammer the flagstick and go in the lake. And you're like, you hit it in the water. It's like I almost made it. like,
It's true.
and
It's true.
just the having a little bit of humility and understanding that I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna work hard, I'm gonna be treat the people that I'm around with respect and understanding. But when it comes down to it, I'm gonna walk off the course knowing that I played and competed at a super high level, and like I can hang my hat on that.
Yeah.
Now, granted, like, do I want to win? Do I want to can beat someone's brains in on the course? I mean, as a competitor, it's hard not to turn that off. But when I walk off the course, whether it's 66 or 74 or whatever, like I walk off with my head held high, knowing that the effort that went into it was something. Now, the other side of it too is when you kind of bag it and you know it. We always talk about like that inner voice of understanding
Mhm.
of like, I can take that shortcut. I can cut this workout short. I can do this. I can do that. But you'll know that's the thing where that self worth and understanding of where you're the only person in the room that knows, and you didn't do it, and you kept going, you kept pushing forward, you hit those extra balls, you did a few extra reps in the gym, took a little bit more time with that person that needed 5 more minutes of your time because they were needing something out of you that you weren't ready to give. And
Mhm.
I kind of think that's the stuff where you truly find your worth and understanding of just as a human, not necessarily as a player. I mean, all that kind of goes into golf, but just as a human, I think we go and try to understanding how to, leave where we enter better than where we found it.
Okay, folks, if I didn't have to go and give golf lessons now, I was gonna go and get on the Peloton after that. Scott, you're a legend. You truly are. I appreciate you joining us. It's been fun covering you this year. I look forward to lots more success for you. For the fans, if they wanna find more, do you have I know you got social media, share the handle, website if you have it, please.
Yeah, they're just my names, Scott Stallings, and Twitter's an interesting place. I'm just more as casual observer. I mean, we put some stuff on there, but Instagram and everything like that. But
Mhm.
I enjoy it and appreciate the opportunity and love what you do out there and being with us on tour. And look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yeah, I like to see if you see me on Sunday afternoons, you know things are going well. So, I look forward to more of that
Perfect.
in the future.
That's awesome.
All right, buddy. Take care. Take care of you.
All right. Thank you, man.